Minister, thank you very much for your time. How much of a problem is plane people as opposed to boat people? I know Labor has been very vocal about plane people being an even greater challenge than boat people.
Well, in some respects, it's not a great problem in and of itself, and certainly not compared to people arriving by boats, because when people come via plane, they've got a visa, we know who they are, they've had a security check, they've had a health check, versus when people arrive unlawfully by boat, we've got no idea who they are, we don't know their security background, we don't know their health background, and they have all the associated risks which go with that. Having said that, we obviously want to reduce the numbers. We're working closely with the partner countries where most people emanate from, and that tends to be China and Malaysia. And we're having success in reducing down the numbers of people who do get to Australia and apply for onshore protection.
So when people come through security at a foreign airport, what sends alarm bells to foreign officials in airports that they've got the wrong visa or they've got a phony visa and therefore there's a need to take them off a plane before it takes off?
Yeah, so there's a few things there, but obviously we have some intelligence gathering beforehand, and there's some data analysis as well, and then there's some matters which can occur at the airport too. I won't speak about the precise operational details there, and you can probably understand why, but it has been successful in alerting then the airlines to the fact that these individuals may have a different intent to what their visa would necessarily indicate that they're going to Australia for, and that's effectively what we're looking for. And so consequently we've had quite significant interceptions, particularly in China and Malaysia. As I said, they actually make up more than half of all of the people who, when they come to Australia, apply for protection visas, and we've had quite considerable success there.
OK, tell us, at what point do these people claim that they need protection? Is it as soon as they walk into the airport and through customs, or is it a little bit later when their visa runs out?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. Sometimes it will be immediately, sometimes it'll be several months later, other times it'll be at the conclusion of their, say, 2-year work visa that they have.
Right.
Now, we know that many people deliberately use this process of applying for a protection visa purely to stay in the country for a longer period of time. And what they'll do is they'll apply, then they'll appeal again, and that enables them to stay in the country, to work a bit longer and send remittances back home. The success rate of those people who are applying is only 10%. The success rate of people who apply from Malaysia, which is the #1 country from which people are applying, is only 1%. So we know for a fact that there's many illegitimate claims being made, and they're making the claim purely to stay in the country while they go through the legal process.
That's extraordinary, because, you know, you've got the left side of politics screaming the joint down about, oh, this is a legitimate problem for government because they're too harsh, they're too nasty, these people deserve their case in court and at the tribunal and at the next appeals tribunal. But at the end of the day, if you're telling me it's 10%, we're being totally conned.
Right. Well, we know that there are many people who have illegitimate claims. They know they have an illegitimate claim that will never be successful, but they're just using the process. And that's what we're trying to crack down upon. Now, people have a lawful right to seek protection, and many people seek protection from Australia because circumstances may have changed in their home country while they've been in the country, and that's perfectly valid. But the success rate, as I pointed out, is only 10%, and only 1% from places like Malaysia, or 3% from China, which are the 2 top destination countries.
And then you've got those people, as we've always had, who come into the country, their visa runs out, they just stay here and think they can kind of get lost in the population.
Yeah, that's right, and we're always looking out for those people at the get-go, particularly tourists, and obviously if they overstay their visa, then once we find them, then they'll be booted out and they'll have difficulty in the future getting a visa. Ideally, that work is done at the start. We do that with tourist visas. We're always trying to assess whether or not people are legitimately coming here as a tourist to enjoy themselves in Australia and then return versus coming here as a tourist and then likely to overstay. And that's the case as well with people who have other visas who we think might come to Australia and have alternative intentions other than what their visa was for.
Okay.
I'll just reiterate though, Chris, that you know, in some respects, this is a problem because it can clog up our justice system, but we've got to keep this in perspective in terms of we know who these people are, that we know they've been security checked, and so compared to the catastrophe of 50,000 unauthorised boat arrivals, this is not really a significant issue.
Okay, but can you put a number on it? Say we've got students, those on work visas, those on tourist visas, all of their permission to stay in Australia expires. What number? I know it's been sort of said that there would be 50,000, 60,000. I don't believe that for a minute. It'd be closer or over 100,000 people in this country, wouldn't it?
Well, I don't know the answer to that question, Chris. I simply don't know. Many people do apply for a different visa once they're here. You know, they might be on a tourist visa and then get offered a permanent job and apply for a work visa, for example. I don't know the answer to your precise question.
Okay, that's okay. I appreciate your time this evening too.
Thanks very much, Chris.
Good on you. Alan Tudge, Acting Immigration Minister at the moment. Now, back on the coronavirus, and the death toll from it has risen sharply today. It's confirmed 106 people have now died, while more than 4,000 are still infected just in China. Extra security and screening measures are in place at airports, while the government works to evacuate 400 Australian citizens stuck in China. Rui Severino is an Australian horse trainer and one of the hundreds of Aussies isolated in lockdown in the city of Wuhan. He joins me right now. Rui, thank you very much for your time.
No, you're welcome.
What brought you to Wuhan? What were you attracted to originally?
Well, I'm a horse trainer here in China, and the racing calendar moves around China, and during the winter, every year we come to Wuhan for half of the year.
Now, you were out of the country at about Christmas time, but you came back in. At what point did you come back in this month?
I was in Australia for over the Christmas period, and I came back on January 15th. I arrived back in Wuhan.
So hang on, I'm just looking at the timing of that. So when you got in, it was only a few days later that news broke, maybe across China as well, that this virus had gone from an animal to a human being.
Absolutely, absolutely. And not only that, only a few days later, everyone found out that it was transmissible from human to human.
And we learnt today that the information about this virus was kept secret for a few days. And in that time, as you know, this is their only holiday for the year for the Chinese. And Lunar New Year, they take off. And we know that 5 million took off from Wuhan. It virtually let the cat out of the bag, didn't it?
It did, it did. The fact that the information was hidden, I think, was a bit earlier on. And I don't know if it's hidden or I just don't know if the authorities at the time honestly didn't know enough. But I've also read here in the local news that, yes, the mayor of Wuhan has admitted that he delayed the release of the information that he already had.
OK, describe for us, what's it like to be in lockdown in Wuhan right now?
Well, lockdown, it's a partial lockdown. I'm in a privileged situation because I'm 15 minutes out of the city towards the airport. I'm still in a residential district part of the Wuhan city, but I'm outside of the centre, and so I'm still able to come to the training centre every day and go about my daily life. But once I finish my work at the training centre, I go home and stay home.
OK, so you can't go to a village, you can't go to a supermarket, is that right?
Yes, I only go to a local shop because I live in a complex of about 8 or 9 buildings, and there's 2 small local shops, and they have essential goods. But at the moment, we know when they run out, they'll run out.
And you can't go to the centre of Wuhan?
No, I can't, and nobody can. And neither the centre of the Wuhan, the people living in the centre of Wuhan, they cannot get out as well.
And are local Chinese telling you about how they feel? Are they scared? Are they frightened?
Everyone is scared. But I think the Chinese are very, and so am I. We are hopeful and we are staying positive because we see that everyone is supporting and obeying all the rules and measures that the government has put in place. So it sort of makes sense to us, and I hope it makes sense to everyone else too. The lockdown and the restriction of movement of people, so it doesn't infect any more people.
Do you know anyone personally who has contracted this virus?
No, I don't.
I'm just asking that question because I wonder whether you and the people of Wuhan are getting accurate, up-to-date information about what's happening in terms of the death toll, those numbers that are now being counted as having contracted the virus. Are you being fed the right amount of information, or are you having to go look for information?
Put it this way, both. I think nowadays we are presented to a different situation than back in 2003, when was the SARS virus outbreak, when there wasn't as much information as there is now. Today, the young generation, the young Chinese generation, are very switched on. Most of them are the great majority are very well educated. They also have their own sources of information, and they also scrutiny the government information, and they challenge the information too. So there is still a big difference from what we hear on social media and other sources and what we hear from the local official, let's say, information sources, right? There is a big difference. So sometimes it's hard to know what should we believe. But I think within Wuhan, the numbers are true. Outside of Wuhan, I could not confirm, and neither could anyone, because nobody can get there. And I'm talking within the province of Hubei, because it's a very, very big province.
Yes, it is. What about from those officials? Do you think they're trying to still downplay what's going on?
To be honest with you, it does not. And I watch the channel on TV, CGTN, daily, almost every single minute I'm at home, and they're pretty much the official English channel in China, and they're constantly in debates and talking to people overseas from the US, from the UK, specialists from all over the world, and it seems like they're sharing all the information that they have. This is the feeling that I have. But I mean, I'm not in a position to confirm or to dispute that, am I?
Okay, can you work the internet effectively, or have they slowed down the internet? I ask that because I've lived in Beijing for 2 years, about 15 years ago, and every time there was an international story related to China that was a tad embarrassing, they almost shut down the internet to go so slow, it was ridiculous trying to use it.
I actually don't have that problem. Also, nowadays, as you know, there are what we call the VPN apps, and so that I can access to Google and Facebook and other websites.
Okay.
But the internet, I haven't noticed any slowdown on the internet at all.
Okay. Have you been
able to download videos?
Okay. Have you been urged to wear a mask? Is that what you have to do, or are you only doing it? And what have you been told about keeping healthy, for instance?
At the moment, everyone wears a mask. It's compulsory, unless you're at home. As soon as you walk out of the home, you're compulsory to wear the mask. Every time you walk out of your building, your apartment complex, everyone has to go through a disinfection process, like walking through some disinfectant and going to an ultraviolet room. I don't know if that's the situation in all the complexes, but it is in mine, and so it is at the training centre. The same process. Okay. And what they tell us to keep healthy is keep washing our hands. There is a lot of prevention information out there. Wash our hands thoroughly, cook our own food, keep everything as clean as possible.
There are 400 Australians who have told relatives that they want to get out of Wuhan. What about yourself? You're destined to stay there? You don't want to leave?
I've chosen to stay.
Right.
With all due respect for everyone else's choices, in the end of the day, it's a virus. It's not a war, and I believe we need to work on prevention and in a calm way, and just try to follow the procedures and the rules and just wait, I suppose.
Okay. The Americans say that they're in the process of getting a very large plane and getting American citizens out of Wuhan. and the Australian Prime Minister has been in touch with the New Zealand Prime Minister to try and get a Trans-Tasman effort going where planes will arrive and take people out. Is that such a safe thing to do given the state of the virus, or do you think they'll be allowed to do it?
I think they'll be allowed to do it because in the end of the day, I don't think the Chinese will want any hiccups later on with anyone. So if that's the position that other countries take, for example, I'm a dual national, and the Portuguese embassy have also contacted me, and they also are preparing the evacuation of not so many Portuguese, but in conjunction with other European countries. But I think if the right measures are taken, especially quarantine measures, I don't see why is that a threat for their countries, but or where they go back. However, nobody knows who is carrying the virus or not, including myself. I feel great. I feel great every day, but we hear about the incubation period that can take up to 14 days. So I might have another week to go before I know if I'm really okay or not.
And then you can rest easy. Rui, thank you so much for your time. All the very best through this very difficult period in this city, and good luck with the horses in 2020.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much.